Hey guys, Felix on Dogs Unleashed for another great conversation with a great trainer. Marc Goldberg, trainer, uh, awesome guy. has it's done the grace of come online to talk to me. People don't like talk to me, so I scare some people.
You don't scare me, and we're gonna have a good time. Don't you worry.
Awesome, awesome. So actually, we've never met before, but we've spoken to each other online a few times.
Yes, sir.
And actually, this is a learning experience for me. To be honest with you too, so I'm looking forward to it. And I actually have some unique questions to ask you. So first thing, please tell me about what you're doing right now. Where you located? Let's start from present to past to future.
Well, I was born a small child, brought into the world.
You started breathing at this amount of time.
I did. Okay. Well, look, I'm going to give you the shortest version I can, but I'm long-winded. Okay. Warning. So those of you who are watching now, you might want to, if you're not watching live, you might want to hit pause, go get a cup of coffee. But okay, look, the long and the short of it is I'm like you, I'm an East Coaster, although I have been training dogs now in the Chicago suburbs for 100 years. But I was born and raised on the East Coast. And back in 1969 was my 11th birthday, and my mother finally got me the dog that I had been begging for.
And you're just like me. I always wanted one.
Yeah, well, it was the same. Listen, here was the deal. My father's people were dog people. And my mom's people were, like potted plant people. They weren't even goldfish people.
Gotcha.
And they were divorced, and mom had her hands full, and all I know was, I wanted a dog. Luckily for me, she got desperately ill, and so she was confined to bed for weeks. Now, when I say luckily for me, that's because she was like semi-comatose in a bed in her room.
Say anything, yes, right? Say yes.
Well, let's just say, Felix, I was in her ear all day, every day. I want a dog. I want a dog. I want a dog. When you wake up, I want a dog. I want.
Damn. Okay, let's get that damn dog.
Well, she didn't have the strength to say that. I just remember her saying one time, "Okay, but now let me sleep." And she just, Anyway, she got better, thank God, and I got the dog. Now I will say, this was the era. Remember, this was the late 60s into the early 70s, and because I'm an old guy, and I wanted I wanted a collie because
just to interrupt you do look good for old guy.
Well, thank you. That's getting increasingly expensive.
That's true.
Right. Okay. So anyhow, I wanted a collie, but she said, "Listen, we have a Volkswagen Beetle. I got your sister. There's just no way we're going to fit all of us and the dog into the car if we have to go somewhere." I suggested rehoming my sister, but
that didn't fly, right?
Unfortunately, did not fly very far.
Younger or older?
Yeah.
Was she younger?
She's 2 years younger than me, so I felt at that point she could be rehomed because she wasn't too set in her ways. She was only 9, but okay. Anyway, we wound up with a Sheltie. Next best thing. So we got a Sheltie, and but my Sheltie, first dog and I was a kid. I didn't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it was coming in and out for a second.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't know how your internet connection is. Mine's very strong right now. So
okay.
Hopefully just
for a second.
Okay. Well, let me replay. I was born a small child. Okay. Anyway, we got the
Sheltie. I heard the Sheltie part.
So I got the Sheltie, and by the time he's 5 months old, he's doing whatever he wants to do because he's in the teenage, rebellion years. I wasn't even a teenager yet, but he was, and so he ran into the street and got hit by a car.
Oh,
well, yeah. Now look, the dog lived to almost 18, so it had a pretty happy ending. But my mother sent us to dog school, so I was 12 at that time. I was 12. Because he had surgery, pins, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh, wow.
When he healed up, we went to dog school, and that's where the bug bit me because we He was good at it. He was really good at it. I was blessed with the first dog who just basically wanted to do whatever it is that I wanted him to do. If I would listen to him, if I would meet his needs, he would meet any need I had, as long as I would also reciprocate. And that started me really, Felix, on a lifelong journey to understand the dog, to understand why do they put up with us? Name another animal that you sleep with that actually cares about what you want.
Yeah. No, they're very unique.
You're lucky if you find that in a partner.
Yeah, exactly.
But you sure can find it in the dog. I mean, cats are happy to sleep with you, but they don't really care what you want. And
they don't know.
Listen, I got this whole theory on cats and dogs. The dog, if the moving truck comes, he's making sure you've put his bed and his food in the moving truck.
Yeah.
The cat hides because he wants to stay with the house.
It's like, this is my territory. I won't move.
You're right. But at any rate, I just was bit very early by the dog thing. And then, so I have a slightly obsessive kind of a personality. So I was a young kid. I was in junior high at the time. And they had a library full of dog books. And I just read every one of them. And that sort of piqued the interest of my teacher, who, and by now I think it's maybe 1972, 71. Times were a lot different.
What kind of dog books? Like, was dog training, dog behavior, where they came from? Like, they had books on like how to raise and train your German Shepherd. They had all the Albert Payson Terhune collie books, Lad, a dog, and so forth. So, mind you, I started to collect dog training books, but the dog training books, and we'll circle back to this eventually because it becomes important to this conversation. All the dog training books that I read, and I read hundreds of them, going back into the 1800s, each of those books told you how to make a dog do a thing. Okay.
And a lot of them how to make a dog stop doing a thing. And that's interesting. I mean, I wanted to know how to make a dog do this and stop doing that. I did want that. But it was still stuck on, why do they care? And why is my dog stubborn sometimes and very willing other times? And so it just kind of fascinated me to untangle the dog. But sooner or later, my teacher called my mother and said, "I'm bringing this kid home. I've got dogs. I got problems." And and I wasn't even, I think I was 12, 13 maybe by this point, but that, the oldest. So she brings me home and she's got full-size dachshunds, they're kind of big, full-size dachshunds, like the size of like a proper torpedo. And, and they were nuts. But I told her just, I don't know if this is going to work because I never trained anybody else's dog, but just like, watch out your
dachshunds from.
Well, they were my teacher's dogs. She taught.
Oh, your teacher's dogs. Okay, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So because she saw that I was reading all these dog books, so she took me home to train her dogs.
Oh, got you. Your first case.
It was my first case. Yeah, absolutely. So
a pass fail.
And they started to train up, like they actually started to engage and do this. They started to heel and sit and down, and they started doing stuff as I was teaching them, which just floored her. She couldn't believe it. And then she drove me home. Now, here's a couple of important points. I want to say that Alexa, what was the minimum wage in 1971?
In 1971, the minimum wage in the United States was $1.60.
$1.60. Minimum wage was $1.60 that year. And I had been training her dogs for, I don't know, maybe an hour. And then she drove me home. And I'm starting to get out of the car. And she goes, "Wait." And she fishes around and she hands me a $5 bill. For 1 hour's work. And the minimum wage was $1.61. Wow. So this was a substantial amount of money, Felix. Wow. I got to tell you, $5. I mean, my mom gave me two a week.
Home run the first time.
It was, yeah, I did. That's true. Yeah. So, I like that too. So what
I know back then things were different. What kind of method were you a little bit more harder? Did you use food? What was your
Okay,
way of doing
that's a good question. In that era, you're right. Dog training was a little bit harder. But so here's how I learned with my Sheltie. You started on a 6-foot leash and a choke chain. You started in a gym surrounded by other people and dogs. So for that dog, it was going to be the first time around unmanageable distractions.
Gotcha.
And then you said this mystery word, this mystical, magical word. You said it in a commanding tone of voice.
Come.
Now the word was heel. That's the word we started with. Yeah.
Heel.
You said this word that made no sense to the dog whatsoever, or even to me at that point. And then what you did was you started walking in a square, and you just made hard right turns, and you just jerked that dog every time he wasn't doing the right thing. This is what I was taught.
They still do that.
Well, some people do. Yeah. It's true. Now, I wrote a book called The Art of Training Your Dog, and I wrote that with the monks in New Skeet, and we don't do that anymore. Yeah. But this was how I learned. But look, here, so that's what I knew. However, I also knew that my Sheltie was a kind of a sensitive soul, and I really wanted him to like me. I slept with this dog. This dog was my world. So I was a bit easier on him, I think, than what my original teachers might have wanted me to be, but it worked anyway.
That's good.
Yeah. And so with these dachshunds, I kind of did what I knew how to do, but just on flat collars, because that's all they had. But basically, if they tried bolting, north, I just did a quick about face south. And, which arrested their forward movement, and then praised when they looked at me. And pretty soon they were interested in this because nobody had really ever challenged their mentality before in a meaningful way or given them anything to do.
Gotcha.
And they liked it.
They probably needed
it. I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure you're right, because most dogs will want to earn positive attention if you just kind of show them how.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that sort of started me. That's kind of how I got my start. But I guess the other thing too, regarding dog training being hard back then, and in some situations, some cases now too, I was just always interested in how to soften the approach.
Yeah.
But to keep it effective, because I have very low tolerance for voodoo, crystals, fairy dust. Incandescent. I've tried it over and over, Felix, but Wingardium Good Dogiosa, that never worked for me.
A lot of people come to me that they want that voodoo magical stuff.
Yeah. Well, the voodoo is in the balance between don't do this, but hey, try this, and you're going to find it more rewarding. We don't need to make it awful. We just need to make it less rewarding than the try this way. And so we wrote a whole book about that. But The Art of Training Your Dog, look it up. It's about e-collars and how to do it gently and sweetly and nicely. But thank you. Yeah, that's the middle one. Now, if we start on the left-hand side, let dogs be dogs. We wrote a whole chapter. I believe it's chapter 4 on the history of dog training and why it was so harsh, why it became so voodoo permissive and ineffective, and how the pendulum has been swinging back into the middle ground where dog training is both compassionate and effective, which is really what you need. You need that blend of, I love my dog and I want this to be enjoyable for both of us. But I need it to work, because when I say come, I need him to turn away from the squirrel and come back to me before he gets hit by a car.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Well, I told you I was long-winded, but that was my brief introduction to Marc and the history of dogs.
No, that's awesome. That's amazing. That's actually that's very similar to me. I always wanted a dog myself as a kid.
Well, what happened? How'd you get your dog? What kind of dog did you get?
I had to wait until my folks, we got a house. I was like 26, 27, and I got a German Shepherd.
You know what? You went right for the gusto. You went right for the gold.
Oh yeah, I want to actually know it's something. Talking about German Shepherd.
I gotta wake this one up.
It looked like my first guy.
Yeah.
I got Sable, and I made so many mistakes and learned so much, and you know, it was my first dog.
Well, you know, yeah, that's the one thing I have learned about German Shepherds over the years is they do train up very well, but they kind of want you to prove that you're a better trainer than a Sheltie. The Sheltie was not terribly challenging. You know, the German Shepherd, they always seem to enjoy giving me a run for my money.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's what you want me to do. That's adorable. And you know, you get this little vein throbbing when you get upset. Let's play with that a little bit more.
Yeah. My guy was not bad. You know, if I look back at him now, he wasn't really bad. He had some issues, but he wasn't horrible. And I also started training right away. I wasn't like one of those people that waited 2 years before you did the first train lesson. So, but the problem is I went to trainer, and you know, that was the issue.
Eventually we take the mishmash that we learn and we try and shape it into something that's pleasing to us and that works for the dog. And from that, you know, a method emerges. And I always think of dog training, you know, you have baking and you have cooking, and they're different things. With baking, there's steps and they're scientifically organized. And if it calls for a 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar, you don't need to know why it's supposed to be in there. But if you don't put it in there, it's not gonna turn out.
Gotcha.
But that's not dog training. I mean, maybe at first when we first start, but eventually dog training is more like season to taste. Use the ingredients that you have and create something pleasing from that. And by pleasing, I mean to the dog as well as to the trainer or the owner. That shepherd that I just showed you, her name is Friday. She was an owner give up. She'll kind of bring me on topic for a moment to this book, because I write about her in The Joy of Playing with Your Dog.
Nice.
The book is really about how to use games. Well, the subtitle is Games, Tricks, and Socialization for Puppies and Dogs, from babies, dogs, all the way up through seniors. And game-based learning is a thing. All of us learn to commit information better if we learn it under enjoyable circumstances. Unlike my poor little Sheltie, who learned to heel at first and square, you know, yanked if he didn't do it. Today we can teach so much more if we can engage the dog's sense of joy as we train. But the story of Friday, my shepherd, who and really honestly, the fact that she is sacked out there, this dog is not under command. This is her chosen.
How old is she?
She's 6. Yeah, and that's her chosen position right now. Mm-hmm. She's in the prime of life. She's a very lively dog, but that is what she chooses for herself.
Nice.
But when I trained her for the owner, she was 2.5. She was a nerve bag. She was a bag of nerves. She was ridden with anxiety. She was whined, trembled, paced, never just laid down, never went off, no off switch, just everything anxiety.
25 hours a day.
Only when she fell asleep, you know, would she quiet. Now, the owner ultimately decided to ask me to place her. And I understood the owner's situation. A lot of times we dog trainers are very quick to judge an owner, like, why don't you put the work in? Man, this owner put so much work in, you have no idea. She really did everything that she could and should. And I think this is kind of like a parable, something that we as dog trainers, we should remember. We deal with every element of society. We deal with people who have problems that we can't even begin to imagine. And they don't all just dump them on us. But the reality was that this dog's owner is mother to a boy who is autistic, to the more extreme end of the scale. And when he was younger, she could manage the family, the dog, the child at home, and so forth. She was very committed to keeping her son home, which I think is, you know, admirable. Not everybody can do it, but she could, and she did. But as this boy hit puberty, his behavior became more extreme, and he and the dog were terrified of one another. So it was a very unhappy situation.
Foundation.
No, to imagine the stress on this lady. trying to just balance the needs of everybody. So I trained the dog, sent the dog home. Her obedience came along quickly, but it didn't fix the problem. She would do everything I wanted her to do, but still trembling and whining. And you just can't. I'll correct whining and barking if it's sort of a protest, I don't want to behavior. Okay. But you have to read the dog. And if what you sense is subconscious reactions, then it's anxiety. And anxiety is not a bad behavior which you can correct for. It is a symptom of something else. It's a symptom of unease. And unless you treat or figure out how to change whatever is discombobulating the dog's mentality, you really, it's not fair to just punish the dog for making noise that they don't know that they're making even. Yeah. And what I did was I wanted this dog, I knew she needed exercise. However, she had zero retrieve drive, zero.
Okay.
I would throw the thing. She would look at me. All she wanted to do was like follow me around the training field, trembling, whining, and staying 3 feet away from me.
And secure.
Very. She wanted me to fix her problem, but she could barely tell me how to do it. And so if I was a younger and less arthritic guy, and I was a jogger or a runner, well, then I could have run her. If I was better on a bike, I could have just, held onto the leash and, just biked her to get the energy out. But I really wanted to teach her retrieve because I have a lot of land on my little farm here. And when I wanted to use a chuck it and I wanted to run the dog while I didn't have to do all the running.
Yeah, smart.
So it took me quite a lot. And I really had to channel a very good friend of mine who is deceased. Many people know who he is, Martin Deely. Martin Deely was one of the co-founders of the International Association of Canine Professionals, IACP, and he was a famous retriever trainer.
Okay.
And I spent a lot of time with Martin. I mean, he did gun dogs, and he never used a force fetch because he never needed a force fetch, and he won a lot of trophies.
Okay.
But one of the things that he was convinced of was that if a dog doesn't like a ball, then don't start on a ball. If the dog doesn't like a bumper, don't start on a bumper. He had hundreds of different kinds of retrieving objects. And he showed me how he would just kind of cycle through them until he found the one that the dog liked. Now, there's process to that. You just don't throw the kitchen sink at him one day and see what happens. But I started using his process, and then nothing. She was interested in absolutely nothing until one day I kind of tossed a foam frisbee.
Okay.
And I don't know why she did, but she looked at it. When I said she didn't go to it, but she looked. She never looked at anything else Sorry?
Got attention for a second.
It did, and I marked that moment. I'm not a clicker guy, but I do believe in giving a marker for the moment if and when it's useful. So the moment that she looked at that, frisbee on the ground, I said yes. I just marked the moment. And then, but she's kind of a pleaser. She does have a pleaser personality. She's biddable, this dog. She just, couldn't figure out what I wanted. But I just started moving it further and further, and I quit marking the look over time.
Uh-huh.
So she went up to it, and I marked that, and then just, called her back. And I don't know, eventually she picked it up, and I marked that huge.
Nice. And
then before long, she had drive to retrieve it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And now a proper frisbee, if you're athletic, you can make it go really far, but this thing was foam. It could only go so far. Okay. So eventually what I did was and Martin also taught me how to transfer. This is a tricky thing, but once you create drive, and let's say it's retrieve drive, you can transfer the retrieve drive to a new object. Or if you're a scent guy, now that you have retrieve or let's say ball or toy drive, and you want to do drugs, we'll just teach them that their ball smells like drugs, and they're going to start looking for the ball, or the heroin, or whatever it happens to be. no expert there, but I know. And at any rate, I transferred it to a ball. And let me tell you what, the dog came back to me. The owner asked to come see me with the dog.
How long, like, what was the time frame?
I sent her home, and the owner called me back 3 or 4 months later. Yeah, 3 or 4 months later.
After the retrieve or before the retrieve?
After. Because I taught all that in a board and train.
Okay.
And so I sent her home. I showed the owner what to practice and what to do. And the dog was still a little shaky because, it was all new, right? But the owner came back 3 or 4 months later with the dog off leash, which, this is the kind of dog you really don't need a leash because she doesn't want to go anywhere. Gotcha. unless it's to a ball. And well, anyway, we go into the training center, and this dog just said hello to me, and then just like did what she's doing now, which is to just like,
just chill,
lay down and hit the deck all on her own volition, with no command. And my mouth fell open when I saw that, Felix. I was like, WTF?
Wow.
Like, she's healed. Like, she wasn't trembly. And I said to the lady, I said, what have you been doing with her? She goes, oh, what you told me to do. I retrieve with her a couple times a day. But the dog and the kid. So anyway.
So how did the relationship with the kid be at the time?
Well, the problem was that this boy, as people with autism at a certain point on the spectrum will do, they have specific movements and noises or sounds that they make to relieve frustration that were scary to the dog. She's not a brave dog.
Yeah.
And so if this boy would, yell, and he wasn't yelling at her, he was just alleviating his frustration, which is not abnormal. To all my neurodivergent friends and listeners, I'm not entirely sure I'm explaining this correctly because I'm out of my area of expertise, but I know what Mom described to me, and it was keening, wailing, flapping, and this is not abnormal for neurodivergent people at a certain point on the spectrum. It's not abnormal, but the dog couldn't cope with it, so she would go flying out of the room, Anyway, it was unhappy for everybody, and they were very thrilled.
Quick question,
with me.
So when you were doing the retrieve and play with her, did you throw into tugging? You throw tug of war, anything like that?
Oh, that's a really good question. Here's the thing. Every dog is going to have a toy or an object or a game that they prefer. Just like, you might prefer Italian food and I might prefer French food. I mean, we all have, you might like vanilla, I might like chocolate.
Our flavor. We like what we like.
We do. And now that isn't to say that I have anything against tug or a preference for retrieve versus tug, because I don't. And we wrote up specifically how to teach tug and how to teach retrieve, even to dogs who don't want to play, because you'll find an awful lot of people have actually harmed the play drive in their dogs before they stumble across a book like The Joy of Playing with Your Dog. And the dog's drive is diminished because people have reprimanded or scolded the dog for picking things up, let's say, or for pulling back when you want the dish towel and the dog is pulling back. If you scold him enough for doing that, and then you tell him, all right, well, let's play tug now, the dog's thinking, you're crazy. Pick what it is that I'm allowed to do. So we talk in the book a lot about how to give your dog permission to retrieve, how to build drive, how to find the object, and then how to transfer the dog's interest to an object that you like. And actually, it's a very good question what you asked, Felix, about tug. On listen, not to be overly commercial, but this book is available on pre-order right now, wherever books are sold. Okay. But on Amazon, there's a video that Brother Christopher and I made, which shows me playing retrieve and talking it through with the dog, and
Gotcha.
him playing tug and talking it through with the dog. Okay, so we actually show both. My only when we're talking not to expert dog trainers, but when we're talking to homeowners, we just want to explain how tug can be beneficial to release energy, but also to teach impulse or self-control, because an important part of the tug is the drop it or leave it. The moment when you ask the dog to stop, we can reward that moment when the dog goes, I didn't want to stop, but okay, I'll let go, I'll stop. And then we can reward with continued play or a reward. And this definitely helps dogs learn to think. What do my people want now? What should I deliver? And that's important. Even with retrieve, a lot of people, let's say people have the dog who loves to retrieve, but now the dog runs away with the ball or, barks in your face and will not let you rest. So that actually, eventually that became my German Shepherd Friday. She became overly obsessive about the retrieve. And so I began to intersperse some self-calming obedience commands into the game, right? So if she's barking at me, I would ask for a down and a moment of peace and calm before I would release her for a retrieve. And what's funny is now, if I've got the chuck it and she starts barking at me, and if I just freeze, I can see it click in her brain. She'll go, oh, sorry, wait, hold on.
I mean, we think this.
I will lay down with no command. She just offers the behavior. We may proceed, is what she'll say to me.
Gotcha. Now, for the dog, for your girl next to you,
yeah,
the aspect of the fetch, what do you think was the key component to help her become like that? Was it the physical aspect of the fetch, the mental aspect, combination? What do you think was and that in her situation at least?
I think for most dogs, Felix, this is a really, really good question. I think it's the mixture of the two. We all know that, if you just get a new cell phone, switch from iPhone to Android or the other way around, or just get a radically different phone. I mean, you have an exhausting 3 or 4 days while you try and learn that new device. Just change cable TV companies or computer programs or computers. It's not physical, but the mentality, the brain drain is very real. As is the physicality of running. But when you combine the two of them, you get the most powerful approach to dogs, and really, I think, to people. And the reason for that is our philosophy is as follows. Games are important, and games really can teach dogs a lot of important information, but all good games have rules. And it is the structure of the game and the rules which make that game productive. So I think one of the reasons we wrote the book was because what passes for dog play for most people is what you and I would just call riling up the dog. You just get the dog nuts.
Yeah.
If you play tug with the dog wrong, you might get bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they might start playing it when you didn't want them to.
Yeah.
And if retrieve is if you reward a dog like, oh God, okay, shut up, by throwing the ball when they're relentlessly nagging you're building a dog who has learned that nagging and crime actually pays, and so they'll want to do more of that.
Gotcha.
So we're teaching games in this book that help people build an off switch into their dog. Like if I can take this dog Friday and if I can make her self-calm, not give her a command to calm, but help her learn that self-calming unleashes the ball, then when company comes over, she's a real social dog. When company comes over, and if she starts to get a little overwrought, for her to find that, okay, I better bring it down a notch on her own, it's so much easier now. Or even if I need to give her a word, hey, it's enough.
So her skill has improved in that area.
Oh, huge. Yeah. Yeah, right. Because if you learn meditation, transcendental, I'm not here to proselytize it, but if you learn meditation, you learn to bring your own adrenaline levels down. You can do it when and where you need to. You're in traffic. Okay, hold on.
Gotcha.
And I swear, these dogs are so much like us. if we teach them what calm brain chemistry feels like, they can access that a lot of times when they need to. So I recommend, go on Amazon, look for the video. It's right on the listing, somewhere on the listing for, this book. And then just look for that little video, which shows the retrieve and the tug. The key points are play, release, reward, calm, play. Like there's a sequence there. But we incorporated all kinds of things. There's games in there for puppies, how to teach a puppy or maybe a rescue dog who never learned to be housebroken. We turned that into a game.
Oh wow! Okay.
With points and prizes and.
Oh really? Wow.
Yeah.
Another question about her. Obviously, in the beginning, you had to work her a lot with the retrieve or find out what she wanted first, and then figure out from there. Teach her to retrieve. Do you have to work her on the? Do you still work with the retrieve? Do you do a lot as you did in the beginning? Has she, like what's her level now? As far as
okay, yeah, that's really good. These are that's a very thoughtful dog trainer question. I'm glad you asked that. Okay. First, when building the retrieve, I think maybe the most important concept, other than start with find an object that the dog likes. So let's start there. But then you have to carefully read the dog so as to quit when the dog really wants to do one or two more. And that's a common mistake. People overdo it. They wait till the dog quits. I want to put the dog away or stop playing the game while she's saying to me, one more. I want to say, okay, we're done now.
So you don't push it. You don't push it.
No, because we want to build drive. I mean, I'm taking this little seed that does not want to grow, and I'm watering it carefully. I don't want to drown it. Yeah. I want to help it become big and strong. All right. But if you play your cards right, all of a sudden that little seed just goes whomp, and now you have drive, which is big and strong. And that also, it can be a bit tricky because if the dog really loves the game, she can become obsessive or pushy or wild about it. And that's not what we were trying to accomplish.
Gotcha.
What I was trying to accomplish specifically with her was a way to get her focused on something other than her own troubles, which were non-specific. Look, back to my dog real quick, then we'll come back here. She's from working line German Shepherd dog, from a very nice local kennel, working line dogs. So it's a dog bred to have a job, but she never had a job in her life. And she just didn't know what she wanted to do, but she had drive built up with like nothing to do with it. No way to express her drive, no job, no work, no interest, and obedience, which is curative for many dogs because they'll really focus on the sit down, stay, come stuff. She didn't care. She would do it, but it did not relieve her mind because she wanted something more, I think, specific and more physical.
And
right?
that's where that leaked out. That's the noises from her, the nonstop movement.
Yeah, that diminished as I built the retrieving drive. But you asked, what happens with that drive once it really awakens, and in her it exploded. And then well, Felix, you got to be careful what you ask for because you might get it. And I wanted a dog with big ball drive, and I got it. And then it was too much. I mean, she was like nagging and barking at me and trying to grab it out of my hands, like stupid stuff now.
So you went from that frisbee to the ball, and now she's crazy fanatical about the ball.
Well, that's an abbreviation because I had to build drive in between, but that's what happened. Yeah. And that's when I started to work in sits, downs, recalls into the game to make the game more complex so that she could understand, listen, I don't release the ball to an unstable mind. I mean, I want a mind who is ready to go.
Gotcha.
but I don't want an unstable mind, and I'm not going to release the ball to an unstable mind. So figure it out. And actually, my inspiration for her to show her how to control herself and to moderate her drive to like reasonable levels. My inspiration for her was the dog I wrote about in the first book, Let Dogs Be Dogs. My dog Diablo, who would just like spin, and big Doberman who'd love food. And he would just like spin in crazy circles when I was prepping his food, like banging into everything, including me. And so one day, dogs will train even their dog trainer owners. We're as susceptible to dog, being fooled by a dog. Right?
Absolutely.
So I used to hurry and feed him fast, which made him do it faster. And so one day I was like, you know what, screw this. I'm just going to stop and see what happens. And he was like, oh my God, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm not. And this was, the mental telepathy conversation that we have. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to move now. Why? Because you're crazy. All right, hold on a second. You can make my dinner now. And forever after I started scooping, I could see him. He would put himself into a down, and then he would just like, if you command down and the dog does it, you have placed the body in the position that you want, but the mind is a free agent. And you cannot command the mind to be calm. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but if you've ever had a fight with a domestic partner and you said, calm down.
Yeah, that don't happen.
Oh my, it goes the other way. So what I learned was, you can't calm, by locking the body into a specific position, the mind is still doing whatever it wants. So I wait for the mind to catch up, and I show the mind, like, I'm not opening the crate door until you settle. I'm just going to stand here and wait. I'm not going to scoop food while you're trembling and spinning. I'm just going to wait. And I'm not going to throw the ball for a dog who is spinning and going nuts. I'm just going to wait.
Now, my question for that is, when you make them wait, they figure out that they have to wait. Do you feel like they're like, as soon as you let them out, or as soon as you give them what they want, do you feel like they spring like a snake out, like a sprinter towards that object?
Well, that's a good point too, because they're building the drive, but they're moderating, they're capping the behavior. So I think a good dog, does. A good dog does. Like when I finally release Friday for the retrieve, on the first one, I always get I get a bark on the way out, which I don't know, if we were in some kind of competition sport, would be a waste of energy and probably illegal. But I don't care. She's just my pet dog.
Yeah, exactly.
So what she's doing is she's releasing that one bit of frustration on her way out.
And what about today? What are you doing today with to maintain it, or you don't really have to do much?
Well, man, you know your stuff, because these questions, I just want the audience to know that the questions reflect dog knowledge. Okay. It used to take 10 or 12 long, like 80-yard throws to tucker her out. Well, she was a couple years younger, number one, but also two, she was wilder. I'm down to the point where I like to do 3 or 4 in the morning, and maybe I'll do another 3 or 4 long
tosses. Okay.
Yeah. And then, these are like 50-yard tosses. They're pretty long.
Okay.
In between. So I'll do like 3 or 4 in the morning, and, maybe again in the afternoon, but not every afternoon.
Okay.
If the weather is terrible, I can skip a day or 2.
You guys get snow there, right?
We do. But some dogs mark a ball really well. They kind of watch it. They know where it's going to land. They just know trajectory, and they're very good at it. This dog is not good like that. She's a trailer. She's a center. So basically, she just wants to know what section of the yard did it land in, and then she's all nose to find it. Okay. And she'll zigzag, she'll quarter.
Searcher. She's a searcher.
That's right. Now, she never fails to find it, and she won't quit until she does. I suppose I could teach her to mark if I knew more about that, because if you're a hunting trainer, you really want that dog to mark. the area where that bird is going to fall, because it's going to reduce the search area, especially if you have a cripple. But, I'm not really knowledgeable in that way. All I know is she's using her body, her brain, and her nose when we play fetch. And that's the reason why I get a dog who comes in and sleeps half the rest of the day.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But I'll tell you this, if it's just, I'm busy or something's going on and she goes 3 or 4 days without retrieve.
Yeah.
She's nuts. I mean, not as bad as originally, but
there's something you have to do to help her with that.
That's right. And it's so imagine for whatever reason you're housebound, for days on end. You're just going to start going stir crazy, and that's what happens to her. Every dog is a little bit different, and she's become very tolerant. I can skip a few days if I have to.
Gotcha.
I really don't like sending her out in the rain, because she'll come to sliding. She'll just come into the house a ball of mud. So
the wet dog.
That's right. Yeah, I don't love it. Although I don't know about the rest of your listeners, but I personally believe that carpet is the devil's work, and and I don't have carpet anywhere in this home. It's all tile and wood.
Yeah. So going back to a more detail, you were saying everyone has their own flavor. So when you're with the ball, obviously she had the foam frisbee.
Yeah.
When you went to ball, does she particularly like a certain ball more than another that you see?
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's good. So what I went to was tennis balls, but there's a couple problem with tennis balls, and dog trainer people know this. Number one, if they mouth them enough, it's abrasive, and it can, I guess, I don't know if this is true, but word on the street is, that it'll harm the enamel. But her problem was she was pretty mouthy with them, so she just started to delight in popping them. So she just popped too many of them. So I went to the Kong, the Kong ball that fits the chucket. And then I wanted something that was a little bit bigger. They make a larger size one, and that's what I have now. And it's red because if it goes into the snow, it just makes it a little bit easier for me to know basically where it went. But she's pretty transferable. Yeah. She's pretty easy to. Once the Kraken is released, the average dog is not going to be overly picky about what it is they're going, as long as you get them to send them. Now, if I send her for a bumper or a rope toy, she will go for it. She will bring it back, but she is not as animated. She doesn't care for them as much. I have a little dog here. She's 18 years old and blind now, a little rat terrier.
Oh, poor thing.
Yeah, but she still loves her food, and she still likes to go out and sniff in the grass. She can't, she's managed very well she went blind when she was about 16. So she knows her house very well. And anyway, we just love her to pieces. But here's the thing. That dog, I got her when she was 5 months old, and she never cared about toys, and she never cared about retrieving ever. And one day, somebody gave me a little squeaky toy. It was terry cloth with a squeaker in it, and it was a dachshund. It was a little squeak. I'm sure you've seen it. They're in that store. And I don't know why I just threw it for this dog, but she looked at me. She looked at that thing, and she ran over to it. She picked it up, and she started playing with it. And now you have to understand, Felix, I had tried her on like dozens and dozens and dozens of, objects, and she didn't care about any. No, I don't care. Now, could I have taught her a force fetch? Well, yeah, like if I was competing with her in AKC, and I needed that dog to, retrieve a dumbbell just because I said so. Well, yes, I could teach a force fetch. I do know how. I haven't done it in years because I haven't needed to, but if I was competing with a dog who, didn't care to retrieve anything, fine. I can teach it as a force fetch. And if you do that artfully, it can be very fair and reliable. But anyway, she proceeded to give me like 10 or 15 right to hand retrieves. And she enjoyed that toy till she eventually went blind.
Oh.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you have a dog who doesn't care about toys or retrieve, it's probable that that dog just hasn't met their soulmate toy yet. That's all.
Gotcha.
There's one out there. It might just be something weird or obscure, but that was the only thing she ever cared about.
Would it be fair to say to, I guess, if anyone's listening that they're not a dog trainer here, because as dog trainers, we know we have to keep on trying until you get that little spark of what you're looking for. But a lot of owners, if they'll see something right away, they're like, "Oh, it's never gonna happen." Will you be fair to say that it's like going up a hill, and you're pushing the boulder up a hill? You just know it's like you feel like you're not going anywhere, but you gotta keep on trying.
Well, yeah, when trying to teach a game to a dog who doesn't understand or doesn't want to play, then people get frustrated very easily and very, very quickly. And the thing is, that's counterproductive, because human frustration, we communicate that to dogs instantly. Any dog who has ever lived with you for any length of time, they know when you're happy, they know when you're sad, they know when you're frustrated. And
that's a special skill.
Well, it sure is. I mean, I think they were kind of like developed for that, And so I feel like the average dog understands humans far better than humans understand the average dog.
100%.
But at the end of the day, here's the thing about, the games. And we stress this a whole lot in the joy of playing with your dog. We'll tell you how to play a game, but approach it slowly, stay in good humor, leave the dog wanting more.
Have fun.
Be persistent, but understand some dogs are going to represent a challenge.
Yeah.
And listen, there's more than one kind of little league coach. My dad was the kind of little league coach. Get in there, do it.
Yeah.
Catch the ball. What are you doing? You don't want to be that guy.
Move it.
Now, I love my dad, and he turned out just fine. But it was
a little bit of training.
it was touch and go there for a hot minute. And but with dogs, you kind of, if you have a dog who doesn't love to play, but you think it would be good for that dog, or you want that mutual activity, we present you with 25 different
nice
games to try to play, and techniques to help build the drive so that the dog will ultimately like it. But you just gotta view it as a project. Like, you don't get mad at the 1,000-piece puzzle when it just doesn't go together immediately. I like to view it as a togetherness activity, and there's a million ways to help teach a dog the skills that games give them. I've trained dogs for a number of professional sports people, NBA, baseball, football, and almost universally, these are obviously very skilled athletes, but everyone I've ever met has also been very thoughtful people, thoughtful and respectful. And that's the reason is that they're not out there just, doing whatever they want to on that field. They are following the advice of coach and working together with teammates in order to achieve the goals of that particular game. And so if we just approach our dogs slowly, gently, but with a game plan, we will give you the game plan. You provide the dog, I got your game plan.
I think also probably they need, especially regular people, regular dog owners, they got to see it as something that is going to be tough, but they could achieve it and have fun with it. Enjoy your dog.
I think, I've heard from two kinds of people relating to play with dogs. One is I want to play with my dog, but he gets so wild that it's unpleasant and sometimes even almost dangerous to do it, depending on the dog. And so that's why we teach impulse control. There are a lot of games that teach what we would call an off switch, where the dog says, I'm on, I'm off, red light, green light. I mean, we literally teach red light, green light right in the book as one of the first games, so that the dog can understand there's times to go wild, but now I got to freeze and relax, which has payoff throughout the lifetime of the dog.
These other games, do you use food Do you use toy?
Yeah.
I don't use toy, but you use
We
food?
do. We use food and toys, depending on the game, depending on what it is that we're trying to accomplish. I mean, listen, food has, I think, a very good place in playing with and training dogs, but I also think a lot of people use food incorrectly, which can either, if you use it incorrectly, it's going to set you back.
Mhm.
Here's the thing. Food is a wonderful way to motivate certain dogs. Not all dogs, but a lot of dogs are motivated by food. So we use food to help clarify what we want. And then once the dog really understands that, we shift to using food more strategically and more occasionally to say, that was an especially good one. I want you to remember that one. And if you use food as a universal reward, oh, good boy, you peed. Oh, good boy, you're cute. Oh, good boy, you stopped barking. Oh, good boy, you went to the drawer where the treats are and you barked at me, and I think that's cute, so I'm going to reward it. Then you're accidentally rewarding all the wrong stuff. You know?
Gotcha.
So we talk about using food in a real strategic way.
Are you a believer in the concept of, they say, to use food for lower drive, and then the toy, because the toy brings the drive? So, and for people that, if they don't know, we mean by drive, the willingness to want to do it. So like play drive, they want to play with the toy, or food drive, they want the food. So do you believe in the food calming the dog, more focus on the dog for a task compared to a toy? Are you one of those believers? Do you believe that?
I think it depends entirely. I think it depends a lot on the dog. A lot of sport trainers, for example, and these are trainers who are working in, let's say, protection sports, or in agility, or in just things where things are happening really fast. And they're working high-powered breeds. Let's take the Malinois, for example. Well, the Malinois, I mean, typically is going to probably prefer the toy to the food, but it's not that you don't have food-motivated Malinois also. So we're mixing up how to build drive and how to get the game going right, depending on what the dog likes most. But in all cases, whether it's toy or food as a motivator, either way, we are building self-control into the game, so that the average pet dog, when we want them to calm down, we don't have to yell, calm down, which makes it, crazy. If you're an IPO and you're going to send your dog over a very tall A-frame, you need him pretty revved up.
Yeah.
But if you have a pet dog and grandma's coming in the door, you need the dog willing to be happy that company has come, but you don't want that same amount of drive. You want that dog to remember all those times when he was able to turn off the buzz in his mind. Some of the best working dogs, I mean, and some of the very best working dogs don't necessarily always make great pets. And I think that a lot of the working dog owners / trainers prioritize the work, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
I agree. Yeah.
Especially like if you're designed to do a job with an 8 to 10 hour shift, you need a dog who is unbelievably motivated to do that work. But I think that most dog owners are looking for a very balanced type of dog who is happy to go do stuff when it's time to go hiking, or when it's time to play with the ball, but then happy to come in and just do what my dog is, naturally doing on her own right now. So I think my own personal preference is towards dogs of medium energy level, because I don't want a doormat. I want somebody that I can go do some fun stuff with.
Yeah.
But I don't want to spend my entire day entertaining my dog.
Some of those Malinois, oh my God, like they're amazing. They perform amazing.
Yeah.
But there's no off switch. There's no absolutely no office. It's like what like they're like on Red Bull 24 hours a day. You know, like
Yeah.
like I seen them, and I mean they're great dogs, and the people that have them love them and stuff like that.
Right.
But I don't want one.
I don't want one either. I don't even want a border collie. But I'll tell you a quick story, Felix. It's such a good point. I do not consider myself to be a Malinois expert, and I've trained only a few because they just don't seem to come into my training program very often. But I had one who was, a little squirrely, and she was a little bit of a biter, but she and I got off to a pretty good start. But I had a very immediate problem with this dog over the course of the first few days, and that is this dog would not eat or drink for me. And so that's a problem. I mean, if the dog doesn't eat but she drinks, okay, you got time. She wouldn't do either. And what I noticed was that the dog was only calm when I was working with her, when I was working her, when I was doing obedience with her. And I had to make everything a little more complex than normal because she's a Malinois and she wanted it that way. So instead of just teaching place, I had like 5 of them, and I would just send her from one to the other. And that's where she got engaged. That's where I got engagement, was during work. Otherwise, she was mopey and she would neither eat nor drink. So I'm like panicking because I'm telling the owner, like, I think I'm gonna have to send her home. She's gonna probably need a bolus, the big hump of water she's gonna dehydrate and get sick. And they begging me, figure it out. They were begging me, the owners, figure it out, because we can't bring her home. She's biting people, and she's gonna get in trouble, and we love her, but she's crazy, and just figure it.
That's the type of dog they had.
Well, that's right. So now, mind you, this dog died of old age in home and never bit anybody again. But
wow.
Mind you, I had really compliant owners. But my first problem was keeping her longer than 3 or 4 days because I was afraid I was going to kill her.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to my buddy Chad Mack, and I said, Chad, this is killing me. Like, it's just honestly, it was starting to destabilize my own mentality, because
she was a boy.
And I said, Chad, the only time, that she's relaxed is when I'm working her. And he goes, well, then feed her when you're working her. And I was like, Jesus, why didn't I think of that? I just everybody needs that buddy that you can call.
Yeah.
So here's what I did. I got a bowl of, like basically chicken guts, feet, wings, just like, chicken stuff with some water in it. And I put that bowl on one of the place beds, one of the place boards. Her name was Magnolia. I called her Maga. So Maga place, Maga other place, Maga place. And then I send her to the place with the food bowl. And then she's kind of like grooving on this because she's, jumping from one to the other. And then I was like, Maga, eat. And she looked at me like, are you shitting me? I mean, like, it was a really funny look. Like, I understood you, but like, I don't believe. Did you
really? Question mark face?
Yeah, but it was like one that here's where my voodoo comes into place. I do have these conversations that with the dogs. I'm sure you do too, because this is what happens when you are in this long enough to get weird.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, she goes, "Are you kidding me? What? Eat?" And I was like, I was just very bossy with her. I was like, Maga, eat. And you heard me, eat. And she took a couple of bites, and then she looked at me. She swallowed some food and water, and then she looked at me, and I go, Maga, place. And I sent her to another place. And then every time I put her back on that one, Maga, eat. And it became a game to her.
Wow, okay.
Because this was a dog who loved to work. This is the work ethic drilled into this breed, right? And genetically created genetically hardwired into this breed is a heavy, deep desire to work, and they want active work, and they want brain puzzle, brain teaser works that are muscular but also intellectual, and or at least that's how this Malinois was. And within 3 or 4 days of that, she was like, "All right, you don't even tell me anymore. I'll just eat." And she was, she was fine after that. But I had to listen to Chad, and if the only time that she was relaxed was, when she's working, then feed her while you're working. That worked great for me. When I taught her to retrieve, I couldn't do it the way I did it for my German Shepherd, which is just back and forth. She's happy to do that all day long. this dog would look at me if I threw it just in a straight line, more than twice. She'd look at me like, this is baby work, and I'm not a baby. So
challenge me.
Right. So I had her in the winter. So I started like hovering her eyes and throwing it in snow drifts and throwing it on the wrong side of fences. And,
oh, wow.
I just had to make, oh, she did. Yeah. It was a far more complex, like, those like little puzzles that have like 5 pieces that you give like kindergarten kids.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't like those. My German Shepherd, she would play with a puzzle like that all day long. Yeah. But this dog wanted the 1,000-piece puzzle where like every piece is white.
Yeah.
There's no picture. Just figure it out.
Yeah.
And then that's what she needed. But where some people get into trouble with their dogs is when they have dogs with mentality like this and then they don't use it. Dogs like that, they just get very frustrated. And then, as Cesar Millan has said, and this I think is a truth, if you don't give the brain of the dog really anything to do, then eventually its breed or its own personal personality will suggest something that the dog should do, and you might not like it.
Yeah.
So the guard dog guards will breed. The yappy breeds will yap. The ankle biters will bite. However, if you give them stuff to do, then they will do it. Here's that little rat terrier who's just decided to put it in appearance.
How old?
She's 18. She's blind, but she still likes to, our game now is she's a terrier. She likes to put her nose down and find little critters, So I just take her out into the grass and I let her hunt critters. She can't catch them anymore, but she knows where they've been.
So going back to that Mal,
yeah,
you did play to help with the issues. What do you think was the main piece? Do you think to help that dog not bite people? Was it that you did the play, develop a relationship, and then you were able to correct the dog?
Yeah.
What was the?
I never really had to correct her in the sense of like El Kabong. No, I never had to. What it was this dog loved her owners, but
she used to bite. You said she used to bite.
Yeah. Like if they had her, someone was walking near them within reach. If the dog didn't like the look of this person, she'd get a piece. One time they were letting her run in a park, and she chased a squirrel and then redirected off the squirrel onto a passerby, right onto a pedestrian. Just typical stuff. So I guess what I'm saying here is what I really had to do for this dog wasn't so much teach her to stop being reactive, because she really wasn't. What I needed to do was to give her a recall, number one, so that I could turn her around from anything. I need to give her a leave it. And these are just obedience things, right?
Yeah.
But what the play did was the play allowed me to drain the energy in a productive way so that her brain wasn't constantly thinking, do Malinois stuff. Or do the Malinois stuff that Malinois chose, because she was always going to make a bad choice, So I gave her Malinois stuff to do that I could approve of and that she would enjoy, but that would drain her need to do stuff. So that when I said, look, I want you to do this stuff and that stuff, I don't want you doing it anymore, she could say, okay. Here's the reality. If you have bad dog behavior and you give the dog nothing but the don'ts, don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other. You can start eradicating a lot of those behaviors, but you're playing whack-a-mole, right? You whack one bad behavior and you drive it away, but another one's going to pop up somewhere else. And that's because a huge amount of dog misbehavior is driven by boredom and frustration. And if you don't deal with that, you're playing whack-a-mole with the problems, and that's not happy really for anybody.
Gotcha. Now let me ask you a question. Obviously you've trained many dogs by now.
Yeah, a couple.
Do you go? Is your approach always the same, that you always implement the play, or do you say no? This dog just needs obedience. Or this dog definitely has behavior issues, so we gotta do play.
Yeah.
What's your approach when it comes to dog?
Well, a lot of dogs are really satisfied with with being run through an obedience program. A lot of dogs really love that. They respond to that. I do a lot of my leash work while hiking. I call my place the Little Dog Farm, and I have 3 acres all fenced in, but I'm wrapped by a 500-acre forest preserve. So there's hiking trails, and so I just take those dogs. We do stuff out and about. A lot of dogs really like that. But when I get a dog who is pent up, and the normal training routine doesn't bring that dog into some sort of like balance of energy level, which is reasonable, then my next tactic is to see about teaching that dog retrieve. I need to have built a reasonable recall first, which I usually do that in about a week. And then I'll start working that dog with some short retrieves and then ultimately longer ones.
With the play, or like how?
Yeah, well, the answer is yes, but all good games have rules, like we said. So it's not just like, here's a ball, go do what you want. It's sit, wait, get it, bring it back, give, sit. That sequence is really hard for your average knucklehead dog. I don't care if it's a lab, who may have the desire to have something in his mouth, but he's never really let anybody tell him how to do that before, how to play that game. So they have a lot of oral drive, but they don't they don't all default to doing it right. In fact, nobody will fight you harder than a lab at first.
Really?
I think because they have such oral drive that they want to reserve it for their own purposes, not necessarily yours.
Interesting. Wow.
But I also feel like nothing makes a lab happier than ultimately learning how to retrieve, because it's just so hardwired into the DNA of the breed that if you deny them that, then you're forever scolding them for picking up the wrong stuff. How about we just teach them to pick up the right stuff?
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that's so true. Wow. The play is definitely amazing thing to do.
Also too, and I guess we can kind of wrap up on this one.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm sure, well, you tell me, I hear this a lot, and I'm guessing you do too. Not just how do I get my dog to behave better, but how do I socialize them? And especially because of all those years of COVID, I think.
Let me just say one common thing I always come across. People's definition, owners' definition of socialization is dog to dog. That's always the definition of socialization. Yeah.
Well, you're right. That is often what people are thinking, especially in a city environment. People be thinking that a lot because they're going to run into people out and about with dogs a lot. And that's a problem with the word socialization, is it means different things to different people. But we wrote a whole chapter in this book which covers our view of socialization between dogs and other dogs and people. Now, the dog park is really controversial among dog trainers. It's a bit less controversial among dog owners. But I mean, we trainers have seen so many problems that were started in the dog park that we feel like dog park equals death. But the reality is, probably 3 million people a day go into dog parks and come out of them just fine, and so do the dogs. So whether we dog trainers like it or we don't, people are going to use the dog parks. And for a lot of dogs, that is their entire outlet. They need it.
That's true.
So we wrote a whole chapter on what's okay in the dog park, how to understand the dog park. Because, look, if you go to a dog park, you would know within 5 minutes of arriving if you wanted to turn your dog loose in there or not, because you know what you're seeing in there. It's a bunch of knuckleheads, but nobody's got evil intent. On the other hand, there have been times when I lived in the city, I lived in right in downtown Chicago. There are times when I would get to the dog park. I almost always went in because I spent a minute to evaluate what was happening in there. But there were a couple of times when I turned right around and left because I saw things happening in that dog park that I knew were going to break bad or that the chances were too high. So we have there's well over 200 color photographs in this book. A lot of them are dedicated to the dog park, showing you this is what okay dog park play and behavior looks like, and this is the bad stuff, and this is what you need to break up, and here's how you do that, and how to evaluate, and how to make the dog park work for you. Then, of course, we talk extensively about how to introduce dogs. Not every dog. I mean, if you take your dog out for a walk and somebody comes up to you and says, "Can my dog meet your dog?" My answer is almost always no.
That's what I tell people. That's what I tell dog owners.
No. You know what? But like, look, if you're my neighbor, if you're my cousin, if you have a really nice dog in the neighborhood and my dog needs a buddy, that's a different matter. Then instead of randomly just trying to make friends with every dog it meets the wrong way, nose to nose, being held back, which is provocative for a dog, right? We have a whole section on how to create dog relationships and dog-to-dog friendships, which is definitely good for dogs, or at least it's good for dogs who are social with other dogs, and they're not all, but a lot of them are. And so to deprive them of dog company is unkind, but to force them into playing with every random dog they meet also is. So there's a sensible way to do this, and we really we talk a lot about how to socialize dogs in a healthy way.
And you brought up a good point. I think a lot, especially dog owners, not dog trainers, because obviously dog trainers won't do it at all. But a lot of dog owners, I know they're not experienced. They see dogs and they see a dog, they'll see beyond, the language or what they're doing. But you said something really great was look at everything before you enter the dog park.
Yeah.
Examine the dog park, and you see something on you not good, just leave.
That's right.
But I think a lot of dog owners don't do that. They'll look. They're just like, oh, FIFO, let's go in. And they bring the dog in, and then they go on their phone, or they go in their coffee.
The phone is a big problem in the dog park. Yeah, they do. They forget to pay attention to what's happening in there. And,
I don't think, and that's another issue. I don't think anyone's really supervising, observing the dogs. Just go play, do your thing.
Well, it's like taking your kid to the playground. You got to be responsible for ensuring that your dog or your child has a safe time and a good time. And listen, nobody can teach manners better than another dog. So if your dog is pushy, there may be another dog who tells them in no uncertain terms, "I'm not playing with you till you relax a little." And that's fine. Let me tell you a quick story. I had the Doberman. Oh man, when he was young, when he was about 1.5 years old, he was big, he was fast, about 90 pounds at the age of 1, big boy. And he was a sweet dog. He loved dogs, but he was a knucklehead. He was just a knucklehead. And he would just play too rough. He just nagged every dog. He just played with them too rough. So consequently, a lot of dogs didn't like him. And I remember one time I turned him loose with my friend. She had a really big, Great Dane. They're all big, right? But RT was a particularly brawny girl. This is a big Great Dane. And my big Doberman, who was used to being big, he wasn't big anymore, not when he's playing with her. And he's hip checking her, he's shoulder checking her, he's like trying to knock her over. He's just, because that's how he's used to playing so physical. And I said to Anne, Anne, he's being a jerk. Maybe I should, just pull him out of there. And she goes, "No, she'll teach him." And that scared me when she goes, "She'll teach him." And I go, "What is she going to do to him?" And she goes, "It'll be okay. She's good at this." And I'm so glad that I got to see it happen, Felix, because like the third time he shoulder checked her really hard, she just stopped. She opened her mouth. It was like a T-Rex. Okay. It was like a T-Rex. She took his head in her mouth. my heart was like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, yeah.
And she twisted. Did you ever see in the rodeo, like when the guys jump off the pony onto the steer and they just twist the head just right and the steer goes boom?
Yeah.
That's what she did to him. She knew exactly what the twist was, and he just went boom, and he was just down on his side, and he froze.
Wow.
And she when I say she pinned him there, all I mean to say is she just held him there for like a 1, 2,
Corrected
3.
him. She gave him a correction.
Three Mississippi, she held him, then she let go. Let me tell you what, when he got up respectful.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, let's play. And he went right back to it, but moderated. But here's the crazy thing. As I trained that dog, that Doberman, more and more and more in my life, he became my working partner, and he helped me train many a knuckle-headed dog.
Wait. Well, at that moment that he got corrected for that, how old was he?
He was about 18 months old.
Oh, so he's still young.
Yeah, he was a puppy, but he was big. But I guess what I want to say is, over the years, he became a dog trainer. He was an unusually good boy, and he became the knucklehead who was went to reform school and then graduated and became a teacher. So he helped me train dogs, and he was wonderful at it. He helped me civilize many a knuckle-headed dog.
Wow.
And I will tell you what, the first time I saw him use that same exact maneuver was probably 4 years later.
Wow.
Yeah. And he didn't overuse it, but once or twice I saw him do it, and I was like, oh my God, is that genetic? And she turned on the switch, or is it learned? I still don't know, but
that's amazing.
Yeah, it really was.
But would you say not every dog, a lot of dogs can't do that?
I think I think he was.
Well, I'm talking about the first one, the one that did to him.
Most dogs aren't going to do that. Most dogs won't know how to do it, or they're not big enough to. It's a very, what is that movie, Taken? I have a very particular set of skills.
Yeah.
You will be taken.
So on that story, one thing I love, and people are always about correcting and stuff like that. I would say that was a correction, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It made an impact on him and his life.
Yeah,
right. A profound, a good impact. But people always about, I don't want to correct my dog. I don't want to correct my dog. But I one time saw this video of this mother. I don't remember it was a Malay, a German Shepherd.
Yeah.
She went out to do her business, and her puppies were in the box, right?
Yeah.
She comes back. I think it was Mouse. She comes back, and they start jumping and going crazy on her like piranhas, right? And she went right. And they just, quiet down, to settle down. And that was a correction. And they learned really quick. She was like, knock you off.
Well, that is so true. Listen, there's not a puppy on earth that hasn't latched onto the nipple too hard and just been knocked off. At 5 weeks, they have their milk teeth. And if they sink them in too hard, mom's going to go, ow, and knock them right off. And they learn very quickly. I mean, she's flinging them off.
Yeah.
And they learn very quickly, be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful. So I think the trick is with correction. Most humans are never going to be able to correct a dog as sensibly as another dog can.
Oh, so yeah.
So when we're doing it, I think the first thing to do is to educate the dog so they understand the rules. And in obedience or behavior, if we must correct the dog, let's just be sure they know what they're being corrected for, so they can apply the information quickly. And in that way, we can keep correction very, minimal.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Well, let's just talk about your book one last time. We're going to wrap up. The joy of playing with your dog. I'll be honest with you. I haven't read it yet. I'm the one that asked you on the post about it being audio. I'm an audio person, but I'm definitely looking so forward to reading this book. So people get Amazon.
Well, it's available for pre-sale now. It ships on October 14th. So just a few more days, it'll be shipping.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And it'll be Kindle, iBooks, hardcover, Barnes & Noble, Northshire, independent bookstores, Amazon, anywhere books are sold. And I know that they picked, we have a narrator, and and we will be recording the book, so the audio or audible version of it will be available probably within a few weeks of the actual hardcover shipping.
The picture, by the way, is really cool. It's perfect.
Yeah, we really put a lot of thought into what.
That's excellent. That's an excellent picture. Without even reading the words or whatever, you just see the picture from there, you get a concept of what the book's about.
I'm so glad that you think so. A lot of thought went into.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Was that something you guys found, or is this something?
Oh no. Every picture in the book was taken by our photographer. His name is Vincent Ramini. He took all the pictures for this book, and he took all the pictures for the Art of Training Your Dog. And then I would say he shot about 5,000 photographs, and then we picked.
That's a lot of pictures.
Yeah, that's right. And he traveled all over the country to get these shots. That picture was taken in South Carolina, and those two dogs don't live together, but they're neighbors. They live next door to each other.
Nice.
And so they have a play. They do play group. They're very fond of each other.
It's a great picture, I have to say. It explains the whole story without even reading the title.
That was the idea. I'm glad.
And it's very engaging too. Like I really like it a lot. It's very clever, very unique.
That's great. Yeah, we're really thrilled with it. And the other 200 pictures. I mean, you wouldn't believe how much work. Honestly, the idea for this book came about before COVID, and so I would say from idea to finished book on the shelf, 3 years. That's how long it took us. 3 years. So we put a lot of love. Into this.
Just the way you have it. It's beautiful. Perfect.
I'm glad you like it. But we really wanted to cover every age group, and we just wanted to have activities for everybody. So there's no training methodology. There's no corrections. There's no, regardless of how you like to play or train with your dog, this book is going to work for you because
just having fun with your dog, building relationship.
It is entirely about that, building relationships and developing a dog who has better behavior, because we've appealed to just teaching them simple rules for their games. Well,
I look forward to it. Unfortunately, if I keep on picking your brain, we'll be here until
We'll just do it another time.
I got a bunch of questions I didn't get to even ask you yet. So
you save those, and we'll schedule round 2 of this. Let's do it again for sure.
I definitely want to pick your brain on a lot of different stuff, especially on the aspects of the book. But definitely. I just want to wrap up. No, thank you for coming. No, thank you for coming live with me. I'm going to get the book myself. I'm going to order it as soon as it gets on audio. Like, I'm an audio person. I listen to stuff.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think.
Yeah, no, definitely. I look forward to it. But thank you again. This is Dogs Unleashed with Marc Goldberg, and thank you once again. And we're going to learn some really great. We learned a lot of great stuff, and we'll learn some more stuff around 2.
We'll do it again.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. And if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe, like, share. And
tell your friends.
And tell your friends. Tell your friends to get the
book. Hey, you guys, if you're in the Chicago area and you want me, you can find me at chicagodogtrainer.com. If you're not in Chicago and you need anything from me, Marc Goldberg, dogtrainer.com, Marc with a C.
And if you have trouble with your dog, you know who to go to in Chicago area.
Yes. We got you on the East Coast. So we got we got 2/3 of the country covered between you and me.
I'm still learning. I'm always learning. That's the one thing I'm a martial artist for many years, and I apply to my dog stuff. So I'm always learning new tricks, new things, developing everything better.
That's great. You keep going.
All right. So thank you, and keep on watching, guys, for the next episode.